everyone, welcome to Ask an Armourer. My name's Kia, and today I'm going to have another armorer on with me to do another interview. This time, I'm very excited to have one of my first real apprentices, Mila, back all the way from across the pond, but she's back. So I'm just going to introduce her to you now, and she's going to walk us through a little bit of what her journey's been like. Alright everyone, say welcome to Mila. So thanks for joining me here, really glad to have you. You want to just give people a bit of overview about yourself and your armory now? Where are you at as an armorer now? And how did you get started?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for having me here. A pleasure as always. So yeah, I would say that I am on the lower intermediate sort of like level of armorer, I would qualify myself as. I have worked a few tournaments. I know how to pretty much fix most issues with most weapons in terms of club armory, personal armory, obviously, because I'm an epist, so that's a little bit easier. And yeah, I have sort of I had the opportunity to work as pretty much the head armorer for a tournament back in the UK. So that was pretty interesting. So that was a lot of very good experience. So that's sort of like my rationale behind that. And I started doing armory in 2018 when I joined U of T and I met you. But I would not consider myself to be an armorer until maybe 2021 after we came back from COVID and I started sort of getting back into it. And we started, you started taking me to tournaments, and I remember working the Canada Cup in Montreal. So that was, or volunteering rather for it. But yeah, I think that's when I would consider myself to have started being an armorer as opposed to just doing
a repair tech sort of thing?
Or just, like slapping a label onto it. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Cool. So, with all of that, why did you want to become an armorer? Like, what made you actually want to put yourself through going to tournaments and learning beyond just how to take care of your own personal stuff?
Right. So, I think the gateway drug was you, just because... Highly recommend.
I definitely did not ask her to say this.
No, I am not coerced whatsoever. It's great. So, no, because I related a lot to Kia, and when I first, came to U of T, and I saw this, very beautiful young woman who was doing armory and essentially taking care of the entire tech side of fencing at U of T. And I thought that I really wanted to sort of emulate that, and Kia and I have a lot of similar interests. So, I was I really want to sort of also get into this. If Kia's into the stuff that I like, I'm probably going to be into armory as well. But also because part of me, I'm a contrarian. So when I was in my little club in Milton, my coach was teaching the boys how to do armory and stuff and just repairing their own weapons. And my friend and I came up to them and we sort of wanted to just look onto it and sort of figure out what they were doing, and they just shoot us away. And I was like, oh, my friend who's a girl, obviously. But so I was like, this is not fair. And yeah, so when I came to U of T and I saw that you were doing it, I was like, it's possible. And also because I like to feel needed and feel useful. So I figured if I'm an armorer, that sort of gives me something to do and gives me some way to contribute to something else, to a community. So.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. So you've mentioned a couple things, both COVID as well as that sexism that you experienced when you were first trying. Were those sort of the biggest obstacles that you had, or was there anything else that you would say got in the way? Obviously, COVID sort of shut down the entire world, so it was an obstacle to life at that point, but...
Yeah, I think so. I think those are the two main ones. I remember coming back from COVID and sort of looking at the armory and realizing that I remembered very little of what actually went down. So I think that was a big one. And as well, when I moved to London, I had to deal with the fact that I went from having a very well-stocked armory with you who knows how to do most things to having a shelf with a few tools and a bunch of not repaired blades that they were going to chuck out and not actually do any, or buy new ones and not actually repair them. So I think that was also an obstacle, just learning how to do the same things that I was doing with you, helping you do at U of T, but with minimal stuff and sort of having to work with university administration to get funding for the things that we needed.
I think we can all remember that time of our lives when we first started Armory and had very little actually set up for it. So, cool. Well, thank you for that. All right, so that's a bit more about Mila's journey to becoming an armorer. So now that you're here, do you have any advice that you would want to give to somebody who is looking to either get into armory or take that next step from, you know, personal or club tech repair work to armory at tournament work?
Yeah, I mean, I just do it. Not to quote Nike, but just do it, because I feel like once you,
If they sue me for copyright infringement, I'm coming for you as well.
Well, hopefully I have a law degree by then, so I can just represent the both of us. But no, so just, yeah, because I feel like with most things in life, armory is similar. Like, you look at something and you think that it's super scary, and then once you jump into it, you just sort of, you know, you start doing it and you start learning things. And I would also say build a support network around yourself, just because information sharing is incredibly important, especially with things that we do. And, you know, if you're lucky, give yourself a mentor. And, you know, but also Kia's channel, very good. When I forget how to do something, I just YouTube. But yeah, so that's yeah, just, you know, if you're scared, don't do it. If you do it, don't be scared.
Very profound. Thank you. So when you first started doing repairs on equipment, was there anything that really surprised you that you didn't expect to see?
Yeah, for sure. I think how dirty tips can be. And just some of them, it takes like 20, 30 swipes and you're just looking at it and what are you doing? But also how much taking apart a tip and like swabbing it out can do, like the difference that it can make. So yeah, but also I guess like another thing that surprised me was just how much muscle memory there is when you go into armor, because like you might do it the first time and you have no idea what you're doing. You do it a second time and you sort of like remember. But then like once you do it like 10 or 20 times, you can just do it in your sleep essentially. And there's like, you don't even have to think about it. So
I can hold conversations much more easily now, like as a much more experienced armorer, even while I'm repairing something. Yeah, so exactly. It tracks. And then, so same question, but for tournaments, like the first time you started doing tournaments, and I'm going to do a little part A, part B for you as well. The first time you did a tournament working as just part of the crew, and then the first time that you were the head tech.
Ooh, part of the crew, I guess I'm just going to say it like as a general thing as well, just how many moving parts there are in a tournament. Because I think that when you're a fencer, you don't really see all of behind the scenes. You just sort of, you interact with the event on one level. And then when you're actually an armor, you see just how the different pieces interact with each other. Like there's DT, there's the refs, there's you, and there's the fencers, and just like how much armory actually does around a tournament. I think that was really eye-opening for me, because as a sort of as a fencer, you just think, oh, these are the people that you come to do the checks at the beginning, and you sort of forget about them. But an armorer's work is never done.
And shout out to all our DT and referee friends. Same thing where, you know, at least I found that doing tournaments now is I have enough to deal with just what's on the armory side. And then I know that the secretariat and the head referee also has a massive list of things that they need to take care of in order to make sure the schedule's set and there's enough pieces ready for the number of fencers we have, and we have enough referees, and we have enough referees that know each weapon. So yeah, lots of moving parts. Say thank you to your event officials. We work really hard for this one. So cool. And then do you have another one for when you did your first time as a head tech?
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna be very positive. Just how much people want to help you. Because the event that I worked, it was I guess I'll talk about it a bit later with the other, I think it was like one of the last questions or something. But essentially there was very little prepared for the armory, but just like how much people, like how much the officials and how much the event organizers were willing to help you do the thing that you were doing, in part because it also made their life easier and made the event sort of better, but it was very nice not having to fight like tooth and nail like I had to fight the university administration for every little thing. But yeah, essentially, yeah, that, and you know, just everybody else, like the fencers and stuff, with their tips and they would just bring like extra, you know, screws or whatever that they had to us, so yeah.
Cool. Well, this is Mila getting into armory and kind of starting to experience in the first way. So let's talk tools. So what do you keep in your toolbox? Like, what is your go-to stuff? And what do you still want to get? What would make your toolbox more complete?
Okay, so I have the usual stuff: acetone, copious amounts of acetone. Those who know. Cotton swabs, sandpaper. If you don't have sandpaper, then you can try to burn off the glue with a lighter, but there's a lot of issues that go in that, but anyways, Allen key. I have a few rebar chains of different makes that I have in there as well. Just your regular, of course, the tiny little set of small screwdrivers for the tips and the guard. Regular screwdrivers. What else do I have? Oh, like a wrench, then not a wrench, the one that you hold it with, the vice grip. Also, oh, I bought myself a travel vice grip, which is also, yeah, it's
very fun.
Small, it's very nice. Oh, and also a magnetic bucket is a must. And that's pretty much, oh, and just like spare parts for just the small things. That's pretty much it. I don't really, like, that managed to tide me. Oh, and also I have a small testing kit that I bought, which is just like the little box and the, yeah, the weight and the shim, just to, you know, for that. But yeah, so that's just my bare minimum. Again, I've only ever worked like a few tournaments without Kia, who usually brings, you know, everything. So that's what I get away with. And in terms of what my wish list is, I really want to make a claw clip, and I want to make a testing box, because I think that would be very nice and very cool, and it's sort of like a rite of passage. So yeah,
Would certainly be a good one, just to prove for real that you actually know how everything works, so you can test it exactly. So for anyone out there, if you want to make your own test box, it is a exercise in frustration in some ways, but also a good exercise as well, and then very satisfying to have the end result. With all of that, what is the tool you reach for the most?
my small screwdrivers.
Small screwdrivers?
Yeah.
That's where it's at?
Yeah, that's where it's at. You have to, people struggle with taking the tips apart, so you usually have to do it yourself. And they're also useful to just like fiddle around in the guard as well, and if you need any like to test the connection and stuff. Yeah.
Alright, and so last little bit on tools. When you're walking around a tournament, do you carry any tools with you? If so, what are they? Or do you just leave everything back at the armory and just deal with everything back there?
I usually carry around tape and an Allen key, just because tape, you can also, sometimes I carry the conductive tape with me, just if anything needs grounding, or tape just to secure anything that might be out of place, and Allen key because, I mean, fencers just constantly, you need it. So, yeah, that's...
Cool, but pretty minimal, not like you've got a big tool belt or anything?
No, not yet, but I think that's also something that I'm going to work on. Yeah.
Cool. So, outside of armory, are you still fencing?
Yes, I am.
And what's your weapon?
Epee, the best weapon.
I will agree to disagree with you on that one.
But you... Mm-hmm.
As a former foilist myself. But that's a discussion for a different day. So, since you do still fence, do you still compete?
I want to, yeah. I took a little bit of a break because I was doing my graduate studies, so that was a little difficult to balance. But I do want to get back into it, so yeah.
Okay, so then moving forward, for different tournaments, how are you going to decide which one you're going to want to try to do armory for versus which one are you going to want to try to compete in?
I think I'll have to look at sort of the skill level that, well, not skill level, but like the level of the tournament. So for instance, I wouldn't, like the small tournaments, I think that especially given my sort of my experience with armory, my level of armory, I could reliably work those, but perhaps I would want to do something a little more competitive in terms of fencing. Similarly, if there's something that's super like out of my league in terms of competition, I would rather do something like as an armory assistant there. But also I think it has to do with the age groups. I have recently aged out of the junior category, so I think like I can reliably just work that, and there is no, I mean, unless, you know, I turn back time somehow. But yeah, so I think that's pretty much that.
Seems like a pretty reasonable compromise, you know, do the senior events like competing and then youth events kind of thing as more the armorer.
Yeah.
Seems like a pretty reasonable compromise. Yeah. So moving a little beyond fencing now, since
there's something that exists beyond fencing.
I'm so sorry to break this to you.
Oh, gosh.
I know. It's a big scary world out there.
Yikes.
So, but as most of us, apparently not all, do have other things going on in our life outside of fencing. What are those things for you? You just mentioned some grad studies. Want to tell us a bit about those, or like any other hobbies you might have?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just finished my graduate work at the London School of Economics and Political Science, which is also where I was doing armory at, in comparative politics. So that was very interesting. I'm really interested in the whole like political sphere, political science. So that's something that I'm very passionate about. I read a lot about that while I still have access to the databases. I download articles and just read them because it's fun. It's a lot of fun. Also, I want to continue my studies, and I want to study jurisprudence. I want to go to law school, so that's also something that I constantly think about.
Speaking of having lots of free time there.
Yeah, so many tournaments that I can compete at and work.
Yeah, exactly, when you're in law school.
But I also write poetry. That's a very big part of what I do. I used to run a newspaper, so I try to also just keep up with writing and journalism and stuff like that, just to sort of work that muscle. And yeah, just like embroidery and playing the piano and like 19th century proper lady kind of activities, if you think about it. So.
But also really good as sort of side things to armory, given the level of fine detail and dexterity needed in both those and in armory. Weird crossover there. You wouldn't think that those are also, you know, sewing patches on. So you'd be good at that.
Yeah, oh my gosh, yeah, sewing a patch into a saber mask. That was the most fun I had.
I think we're going to have a story later on that one.
Also baking. If you ever see me at a tournament, come up. I have baked goods.
She's not lying. Literally, one of the first things she said to me when she walked in was, "Here, I have baked goods for you," which are now sitting on my counter, and no, I'm not going to share this time. They're mine. Wow, so it sounds like you've got a lot going on. Like, you just finished one part of grad school, you're already preparing for another one, you've got all these other hobbies going on. Any advice on how to balance all of that?
I guess, I don't know. Set boundaries for yourself. I think that's very important. You can say no to things. That's a new word for me. And also just prioritize certain things. Like for instance, I want to increase my competency as an armorer, so I would obviously prioritize going to different events and working as an armorer there, as opposed to, say, I don't know, going out on the town with friends or something like that, or, you know, like staying in and, you know, combing through one of the many articles that I comb through. So just like, yeah, set priorities for yourself, as with anything in life, just know what you want and know that you want how to pursue it. So
cool. And yes, that's an important lesson for everybody, is learning those boundaries for yourself. Doesn't matter if you want to be an armorer or not, although you should be an armorer. Learn to say no to things. I promise it makes your life easier. I promise. All right, and then final little bit on this armory side of things. What's your ultimate goal with this? Like you said, you wanted to increase your skill set with it now, but that's very vague. Like, do you have any specific goals for yourself?
Yeah, I think that I want to be able to sort of set up, be a head tech from start to finish with a national level event, and sort of just be able to fix any problem that people come up to me with. And yeah, I think that that's sort of like my goal, and perhaps, you know, the goalpost will move, but for now, that is that.
It's a good goal to have for now, and you know, reevaluate when you get to that point.
Exactly.
Also, be careful when you say any problem that they bring to you, because I've had some really weird problems be brought to me.
Most probably, unless something is possessed, unfortunately, you know.
Yeah, there's only so much we could do when ghosts are involved.
Yeah, exactly.
So, ugh.
I don't carry salt with me at competitions, unfortunately.
Oh, maybe I should throw some of that in my toolbox. Throw some over my left shoulder just when I get there.
Yeah.
Maybe that would keep some of the gremlins away.
Space.
Yeah. Maybe you should try that. Add that to the toolbox there. All right, so now we are at the end of the question list and some of the really, really fun ones. This is the section of the interview I have titled Shock Factor, because these are the stories that we tell that really, truly make our non-armory and non-fencing friends and family a tad concerned for us, and confused about why we put ourselves through these situations. So Mila, for the first one, what is the strangest or weirdest problem that you have seen when doing some repairs?
So I think that there's always a foil that you will never know how to fix. Something happens to it, and I think like that's when the possession factor comes in. You might try doing something in the tip, you might try doing something in the guard, and it just works one way, doesn't work another way. So I think that's that, but in terms of strangest, I have a memorable issue that so, it is Montreal. It is the first big, it's Canada Cup, it's the first big event since we come back, and one of my teammates comes up to us, well the issue starts when he starts messaging me on the train to Montreal asking if there's conductive tape.
That's a good time to ask for repairs when you are already on route to. Okay. Anyways.
Yeah. So since I didn't know it was up. I mean, the alarm bell should have went off. I texted Kia, to which Kia replied yes. I show up to the tournament, and this gentleman has. To say that he had a dead spot would be to say nothing. I think half of his bib was a dead spot, and he had about 10 minutes before he had to, I think registration had already closed at that point, he's a saberist, and he had to, there was 10 minutes before he had to go on stage piste. The line to the vendors was at least a solid 20 minutes. So there I was, with gloves and a needle that I think could pierce through, I don't know, the veil of time itself, just trying to sew a patch of lame onto his mask so that he could actually go and compete. Yeah, that was, get your stuff checked before, please.
I think I remember that one, and I remember texting him directly afterwards, being like, why are you texting Mila when she's going to the competition as a competitor? Right, and he had texted you because he knew I'd be annoyed at him.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
Right.
But then he bought me drinks for the Christmas party, so thank you for that. You know, my labor did not go unnoticed.
Okay, that's good. You did get some props. You got some shout out there. And I did yell at him for not checking his equipment properly beforehand, so he's not repeated that mistake.
Oh, also, one more thing. We had to burn off glue with a lighter. Shout out to John Wilson of the UK Armourers at the Bucks event that I did. That was pretty fun. We just had to burn the glue off because we didn't have an acetone bath.
Oh yeah,
because we had to rewire a blade, and it was
at the tournament.
Yeah, at the tournament.
Oh, gross.
John. There's nothing hotter than a man with a lighter and acetone.
I feel like there's a threat somewhere in there, and I'm a little worried now. But anyways, we're going to move on to our final question. So it is the same premise, but now what is the strangest or weirdest problem, or I'm not even going to say problem, because we know that it doesn't always necessarily have to be a problem to be a very strange situation. What is the weirdest thing you have encountered while working as an armourer at a tournament?
Thank you so much for that question. I was waiting for it. So I showed up to a competition, which is essentially the British equivalent of the OUAs. It's called Bucks. It's an individual competition for university students. And
for my non-Canadian, non-Ontario viewers, OUAs is the Ontario University Athletic Championships. It's our provincial university level. For my Americans, it's roughly equivalent to the NCAAs.
Beautiful. So, I showed up to the tournament. I was emailing the organizers before that, and I was like, hey, I'm an armor, I have another armor, we can volunteer if you want any help. And I show up, and it turns out that they didn't think that an armory would be needed for a tournament of that size. And again, we were there for like 2-3 days.
Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that video. And again, I hope that sort of gave you a bit more insight into how to become an armorer, how we have explored becoming an armorer, and ways that if that's something you are interested in, you can start seeking out that process for yourself. So again, if you have any questions, comments, anything else you'd like me to talk about later, feel free to leave me a comment below, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.